Okay, so I asked some questions yesterday, and one of the questions that might have caused some commotion is, does God have a gender, and why do we refer to God as he, him, um, if God is just a spirited entity, not a human that has certain parts? And that caused a little whatever, because those type of questions are like, eek, especially in today's time and the things that are going on. And somebody was like, well, call God they them. I was like, no, I'm also not going to do that, because I'm not going to say that God is binary, like I'm not. The point that I'm trying to make is, I want to stop using human terms to describe God, because I think what happens subconsciously is that he, him, father, so forth. Cool, all right. I call God Abba. I start calling God Abba. Sometimes I say dad when I talk to other Christians, but I try to not, in my own personal, call God anything other than creator, the great I am, Jehovah. I don't really use Elohim, but I know that is a term that was used also back then. And yeah, I try not to. I use Abba, even though I know Abba is a term, an intimate term to describe the role of father, which Jesus utilized. But yeah, I just, because I think subconsciously it does a few things. Um, we start to see God as human, right? We start to see God as this big man in the sky. And when we see God as a man in the sky, we see God as man. If we see God as man, we see God as flawed. Um, and then we expect for God to have similar logic to those of us who thinks that we're logical, especially men who find themselves to be more logical than women because we're so emotional. That there's like this connection, and that when it ain't connecting, as in the logic ain't logicking, people walk away from God. And it's like, God is not a human, so it's not going to connect with your whatever it is that you wanted to connect with. Why do I look cockeyed? I look cockeyed anyway. And so I ask questions so that we can ask questions, but not ask questions just for the vanity of asking questions, just to stir up people for the fun of it. There is that too. But my fun is not to ruffle people's feathers just to ruffle people's feathers, but to ruffle people out of their traditional closed-minded mindset. And some of us utilize closed-mindedness and masqueraded as, I'm on that narrow path. No, you're closed-minded. And so, yeah, sometimes I do say things purposely to kind of shake that up, because it's like, you don't know everything and you never will. Period. You won't ever, ever. And so, yeah. And so then I went to Exodus. I did this study before, and I didn't finish like diving deep into it, but I did this study before, in Exodus, where God is like, Moses, I choose you. And Moses is like, nah, not me. And God's like, yeah, you. And Moses is like, nah, not me. And then like pleaded, like Moses legit pleaded, like, no, not me. Anywho, before the pleading happened, no, actually, Moses was protesting all the way from chapter 3 to chapter 4. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic for another time. But when Moses is like, I'm in Exodus chapter 3. Who am I to appear in front of Pharaoh? Who am I to talk to people? Like, what am I going to tell them? Like, what you want me to do this thing that's a little on the ridiculous side? What do you want me to even say? Like, what am I saying? Like, are they even going to listen to me? And, so verse 13, but Moses protested If I go to the people of Israel and tell them, the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, they would ask me, what is his name? Then what should I tell them? Now, I only know God to refer to God's self one time with a title, and it was in verse 14. Yeah, and I mean, there's other things that God is like, I am this, I am that, but not really. I know I should have dived a little deeper with this. Because there's a difference with the name, God's name. Like God would say, I am slow to this, I am this. Like these are the characteristic traits that I can explain to you so your brains can understand or conceptualize me the best way you all can. But when it comes to my name, this is my name. And the only time I've seen God, and first of all, in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew text, God is not the word used. That's a more New Testament-y kind of terminology. It was either Elohim, Jehovah, or Yahweh. Those are the three. The three. So when you're reading it in the actual ancient Hebrew language, it's Elohim, Jehovah, or Yahweh. Those are the only three. It's been put in as God, but that wasn't like the term. Just wanted to put that out there. Anyway, the name God gave God's self is, God replied to Moses, I am who I am. There's no name. There's no name. God didn't say, I am Jehovah. God didn't say, my name is Yahweh. God didn't say, my name. That God's name is, I am what I am. And now, if some of you follow Tiffany Montgomery, she said, and it means, I am what I am means, and it has come to pass. And I mean, and once again, that's, God is just such an entity that we can't even, you see what I'm saying? Like, God's name is, I am what God's name is, I am who I am. So say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. Not Father, not that man over there, no. I am, because God is God. That's it. God's name is just be God. And so it says, God also said to Moses, say this to the people of Israel, Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. Now in the Hebrew text, it actually says, say this to the people of Israel, Yahweh, Elohim of your ancestors, Elohim of Abraham, and Elohim of Isaac, and Elohim of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my eternal name, my name to remember for all generations. I am. That's it. And it has come to pass. I am. That's God's name. Now, how did God enter the scene? I remember from my studies, as in like an actual school, in the New Testament, when Paul was speaking to, the Romans, the Greeks, and all of that, they had their gods, lowercase g, Zeus, Aphrodite, all of them, right? And they have different names, and like Greek and Roman have the same gods but different names, like Venus and such is really Aphrodite. I don't remember. I don't remember Greek mythology and then the Roman thing as well as I used to, but they had that, right? And so when Paul was talking to them, when Paul utilized God, he was using God as like capital G. So you all have these gods, and so for you all to conceptualize the great I am in which I am speaking about, I'm going to use your language, but I'm going to utilize your language and say that this being surpasses all of these other little gods. Like these gods that you all, this one above all. And that's how we got the name God, capital G-O-D. But usually gods is lowercase G-O-D-S because it was always talking about these like little other things that people worship. But the great I am is like, I think the great I am surpasses even God. It's like, that's the word that you're using to communicate it's a language usage that was used strategically to communicate to them the concept. Like Jesus used father to the concept. But at the end of the day, God's name is I am. I am. That's it. And I don't know if I am, because we can then say, well, is I am masculine or feminine? And it's like, well, why do we fight so hard about this? Because I'm not trying to say that God is female either, right? Because I know, I don't know, but I can imagine some people going like, oh, she's on this female agenda, so you're probably going to say mother God. And it's like, I'm not on that. But if I was, no, but I'm not on that. But God has traits like a mom, nurturing, loving, kind, unconditional, like affectionate, like. But anywho, I'm not gonna do that to y'all. But it's like we get so caught up, and it's like no, the only agenda is that we stop thinking of God as human. Because when we think of God as human, we start to ascribe things to God that's just not accurate. Because God is not us. God doesn't think like us. And so when we're like, I don't understand, I don't get it, I'm confused. You're not supposed to get it. Faith. How are we going to say we have faith, but we want to know everything? If we know everything, then I'm not having faith. Like if I'm like, let me test this chair, and now I'm going to sit on it. I'm not exhibiting any faith that the chair will hold up, because I know the chair is going to hold up because I tried it out. And so it's like, if you're going to have faith, right? No, I could be off, y'all. I could be off. But if we're going to have faith, we're going to have faith. But the whole point is that God is not human. God is not man. God is not woman. God is I am. That's it. That is what God self said about God. And that's why sometimes I also try to use the Yahweh. Yahweh or Jehovah. I just feel like there's a more accurate description and a name that's been ascribed to God. But God's name from God's mouth is I am. I am. That is my name eternally. Like, I am said it. That's not me. That's Exodus 3. So look at Exodus 3 and look up some concordances. Oh gosh. Look up concordance. I can't say it. Look up other commentary and other things. Also look up like the original languaging. Do a study of what does God call itself, name itself, and then what were the names utilized to describe God then, and how did we come to God now, and then all the things. But I think if we start to see God as not human, we would have more reverence, and we would have more reverence and a level of humility that I think we're lacking as a people. Because subconsciously we see God as human. Because we utilize he, him, and all these other human terms. And he, hims, and fathers are highly flawed. And God is not. So that's where my question yesterday came from. Okay, that's it.